Imagine um, treating your own existence like a suspect in a true crime documentary.
That sounds absolutely exhausting.
Right. You're constantly interrogating yourself, hyper-analyzing every single move just to prove you're, actually in the room.
Like you need a mountain of evidence just to justify breathing.
Exactly. And it sounds crazy, but according to this incredibly dense kind of mind-bending paper we're diving into today, it's exactly what modern society is doing.
It really is.
If you're listening right now, we put this custom deep dive together specifically for you. We're looking at a single academic paper today. It's titled The Axiom of Presence, Ontological Zero Indexing, and the Pathology of the Void.
Yeah, it is quite the title.
It's a mouthful.
It really is. And honestly, it's a text that does not hold your hand at all.
No, definitely not.
It bridges high-level mathematics, centuries-old philosophy, theology, all in the span of just a few highly compressed pages.
Which is why our mission today is to sort of translate this heavy philosophical and mathematical text into a real aha moment for you.
Because beneath all that academic jargon, the core premise is something you probably feel every single day.
Totally. The author is essentially arguing that modern society is suffering from a massive collective identity crisis.
Yeah, a really deep one.
And the reason for it
Yeah.
is not social media, it's not politics, it's not the economy. It's because we are literally using the wrong math to calculate our own existence.
Which is such a wild concept.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this. Where do we even start?
Well, the paper's central critique revolves around the idea that late modernity, so, the era we're all living in right now, suffers from what they call an epistemological inversion.
Okay, an epistemological inversion, meaning what exactly?
In simpler terms, it means we've flipped our understanding of reality upside down.
Got it.
The text argues that we live in a civilization of the gap.
A civilization of the gap.
Yeah, we've built a whole culture that is structurally committed to the negation of its own existence.
Wow, that sounds bleak. But also, strangely accurate when you think about the underlying anxiety of modern life.
That really hits the nail on the head.
But if our modern anxiety is basically a mathematical error, I feel like we have to understand the philosophical mistake that started the avalanche first,
Yeah.
right before we can even look at the numbers.
Oh, absolutely. And to do that, the author points us to one of the most famous phrases in human history.
I think I know where you're going with this.
René Descartes.
Yep.
Cogito ergo sum.
I think, therefore I am.
Exactly.
I mean, even if you've never taken a single philosophy class, you know that phrase.
Oh, yeah.
It's like printed on tote bags and coffee mugs.
It's everywhere. But the paper points out that when Descartes wrote that back in the 17th century, his intention was to find a methodological floor.
A floor, like a foundation.
Right. He was trying to strip away everything he could possibly doubt.
Yeah.
His senses, his environment, his memories, the physical world, is to strip it all away until he hit absolute bedrock.
Okay.
And that bedrock was the undeniable fact that he was thinking. Because he was thinking he must exist.
So it was meant to be the solid ground from which all other scientific and philosophical knowledge could be confidently built.
Precisely, it was a starting point.
But the author argues we've completely inverted Descartes' original intention, haven't we?
We really have. Today, we don't treat I am as the bedrock at all. We treat it as a claim that needs constant proof.
Wait, really?
Yeah, the I am, the sum, now needs the cogito as its legitimating proof.
Oh, I see.
Existence is no longer a given. It's been demoted to a hypothesis.
Wow, so we're basically treating being as a variable like x in an algebra equation instead of a constant like the number 1.
Exactly. The text actually calls this a spectacular irony.
I bet.
The most immediate datum of the absolute self-evidence of your own consciousness has been totally demoted.
So it's literally like that true crime documentary analogy I just mentioned.
It really is.
You know those shows where every single mundane detail is suddenly subjected to this intense interrogation? Like, did he really go to the store? Or is that just what he wants us to think?
Cue the dramatic music.
Exactly. We're
Yeah.
doing that to ourselves.
Yeah.
We are interrogating the suspect, desperately looking for clues to prove that we exist, rather than just relaxing on the couch and accepting that we're the ones watching the TV.
We're already in the room.
Yes, we're already in the room. But we keep acting like our presence is a mystery that needs to be solved.
And what's fascinating here is how that constant interrogation elevates the void to the primary axiom of our lives.
The void.
Yeah, the void, meaning mathematical zero, epistemological doubt, existential absence. it takes the driver's seat.
Oh, wow.
If you start from the assumption that you have to prove your right to exist or prove the reality of your being, you're starting from a position of absence.
You're suspended without an origin or base.
Exactly. You're starting at zero.
Okay, so if our philosophical foundation is broken, we can't just philosophize our way out of it, right?
No, we have to look deeper.
We have to look at the actual logic language we're using to construct reality, which brings us right into geometry and computer science.
Now we're getting to the math.
Right. We established that we're treating existence as a variable, an x. But the paper argues this mirrors a very specific mathematical trap.
It does. We have to move from philosophy into the realm of formal systems. The paper introduces a concept called zero indexing.
Zero indexing.
So if you dabble in computer science or set theory, you probably know that arrays and counts often begin at 0, not 1.
Right. The null set is the point of departure.
Exactly. And the author connects this to what they call the Brahmagupta trap.
The Brahmagupta trap, named after the 7th century mathematician Brahmagupta, right, who wrote the Brahma Sutta Siddhanta.
Impressive pronunciation. Yes, exactly.
The text makes a really big deal out of him.
Mm-hmm.
Why is his work the turning point for all of this?
Well, Brahmagupta is historically credited with operationalizing zero.
Operationalizing it.
Yeah. Before him, zero was mostly just used as a placeholder, like a blank space on an abacus, so you knew the difference between 110 and 100.
Okay, so it just meant empty column.
Right. But Brahmagupta treated zero as a numerical entity that had arithmetic agency.
Meaning what?
It became something you could actually compute with, something that could act on other numbers.
Okay, wait, let me push back on this for a second.
Go for it.
Isn't starting at 0 just how modern systems work? I mean, that's the foundation of the digital age.
It is.
Without zero indexing, we don't have modern software. We don't have the internet. So why does the author view this as a, and I'm quoting here, transcendental error in the code of existence? If it works brilliantly for my laptop, why is it bad for my soul?
That tension you just pointed out is exactly what the author is exploring.
Yeah.
It works flawlessly for your laptop because a computer is dealing with quantities and memory allocation. It's just moving data.
Right.
But when this zero index is applied to ontology...
The philosophical study of the nature of being.
Exactly. When you apply it to ontology, it forces humans into an impossible position.
How so?
It forces us to try and construct the unit 1, which represents our existence, out of nothing, which is 0.
Oh, I see.
You cannot derive a presence from an absence.
You can't build something out of literally nothing.
Exactly.
Okay, so if starting at 0 fundamentally breaks the system of human existence, the only logical fix is finding a mathematical framework that refuses to start at 0.
That's the logical conclusion.
But does a system like that even exist in modern math?
It actually does. The text points to an alternative geometric framework called Universal Hyperbolic Geometry, or UHG.
UHG.
It was developed by a mathematician named Norman Wildberger. And to understand why the author loves UHG so much, we have to look at how it mechanically works compared to the geometry we all learned in high school.
Right, take me back to high school geometry.
Traditional geometry relies on standard metric assumptions, like measuring distance with a ruler.
Sure.
But a ruler assumes a whole external system of measurement already exists.
Right, a ruler implies there's already a universe out there to measure things against.
Yeah.
You need space to put the ruler in.
Exactly. UHG doesn't do that. It operates purely on internal relationships using two main concepts, quadrants and spread.
Quadrants and spread.
We can just focus on quadrants for now. Let's denote it as Q. Instead of measuring linear distance, quadrants is the square of the distance between 2 points.
Okay, I'm with you.
It's a fundamental intrinsic relationship. But here is the absolute catch.
What's the catch?
UHG requires a fixed point of Q equals 1 unit quadrants.
So it demands a starting constant.
It absolutely demands it.
Yeah.
From that fixed point of 1, all other geometric relations become computable. You can build entire mathematical worlds.
Wow.
But if you don't have that base point of Q equals 1, everything just floats.
Floats?
Yeah, you're in what mathematicians call projective space. You might have coordinates relative to other floating points, but you're anchored to absolutely nothing.
So if we apply that mechanical reality back to us, to the human experience,
Yeah.
if we try to calculate our existence from a starting point of Q equals 0, from a baseline of nullity or absence, we just end up in a recursive loop. We're constantly trying to justify our existence, constantly trying to prove we're real. But because we started from 0, we can never actually reach the certainty of being.
You're just chasing your own tail.
We just keep calculating, floating in projective space, trying to find a solid floor that doesn't exist.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this recursive loop is the exact mathematical model of the anxiety of modern life.
And that makes so much sense.
We are zero-indexed subjects trying to measure our distance from other people or our distance from success without ever acknowledging the fixed point of reference that makes any measurement possible in the first place.
Here's where it gets really interesting for you, the listener, because we aren't just talking about abstract math on a whiteboard anymore.
No, this is extremely practical.
We're talking about how you interact with your coworkers, your family, yourself. Now that we understand the geometric necessity of a fixed origin point, the Q equals 1, we can examine what happens to a society that refuses to use it.
Which the paper calls the Grimm predicament.
The Grimm predicament.
Yeah. It's what happens when these abstract concepts bleed into our daily intersubjective lives.
Okay, let's unpack the Grimm predicament.
Because we treat being as a variable, because we are operating from Q equals 0, asserting I am, is no longer just a simple, unshakable fact.
Right.
It becomes a claim that requires constant, exhausting validation.
It becomes performance.
Exactly, a performance.
If my existence or the validity of my truth is just a variable X, I have to constantly seek external consensus to prove I'm real. I need likes on social media. I need validation at work. I need someone else to tell me my coordinates because I don't have an internal constant.
It's exhausting. And the darker side of the Grimm predicament is how it treats people who do manage to operate from Q equals 1.
Boom.
According to the text, in our zero-indexed culture, unshakable certainty is pathologized.
Pathologized. Wow. I see this everywhere now that I've read this source. Society currently elevates doubt to a moral virtue.
It really does.
Think about it. If you stand up in a room and say, I know this to be absolutely true, people look at you like you're dangerous. Or, at best, incredibly naive.
Right, like you're narrow-minded.
Exactly. Intellectual honesty in the modern world demands constant skepticism. You're supposed to end every sentence with a question mark. You're supposed to deconstruct everything you believe in.
But this constant skepticism, this endless deconstruction, isn't actually intellectual maturity. No. The author makes a biting critique here. We've confused anxiety for enlightenment.
Oh, wow. Confused anxiety for enlightenment.
According to the source, this cultural obsession with doubt is merely a symptom of mathematical misalignment. It's the futile attempt to derive unity from nullity.
That's such a profound way to frame it. The loudest intellectual skeptic in the room isn't necessarily the smartest person. They're a geometric error.
Essentially, yeah.
There's someone trying to do complex, emotional, and social math without a constant.
Which is doomed to fail. And this raises an important question.
It's
If zero-index modernity is making us spiritually sick by pathologizing certainty, where do we find a system that successfully uses a one-indexed metaphysics?
right. Where is the Q equals 1 in historical or cultural practice?
The text offers a very specific historical and theological counterformalism to solve this. It looks toward Quranic epistemology.
Okay, now just to be clear for the listener, we are exploring this impartially. We're not taking any religious or political sides here. We're just reporting on the framework presented by the author in the source material.
Exactly. We are just unpacking the text. And the source dives into specific verses to demonstrate a completely different geometry of existence.
Okay, let's hear it.
The author needs a historical model of a system that refuses to start at 0, and they find it in the Quran. The text cites Surah al-Baqarah, verse 256, which states, "The right path is distinct from the wrong path."
Okay, the right path is distinct.
What the author does is mechanically map this onto the concepts of universal hyperbolic geometry we just discussed.
That's right.
In UHG terms, this statement establishes a geometric logic of absolute differentiation. It's a non-zero quadrants.
Meaning the right way isn't some blurry variable you have to endlessly calculate and recalculate based on the cultural mood of the decade.
Exactly. It's a fixed coordinate in the state space of reality. It is given, not derived.
It's just there.
Right. The paper also brings in another verse, Al-Bayyinah 98.5, which commands worship with certainty, using the term Hanafan.
Hanafan.
Yes. The crucial insight here is how the text defines yaqeen, which is the Islamic term for unshakable certainty.
Okay.
In this framework, certainty is not an emotion. It's not a feeling you have to hype yourself up to achieve or a mood that fluctuates.
It's the ontological property of the space the soul already occupies.
Yes.
Wait, so it's more like, okay, imagine turning on the lights in a room that's already fully furnished.
I like that.
You don't have to build the sofa or the table from scratch. You just have to recognize that they are already there. In this framework, we aren't starting at zero and desperately trying to prove we matter.
Exactly. In a one-index metaphysics, the unit, the one, is not constructed. It's recognized.
You don't build your soul from zero.
No, you discover your soul as an irreducible node in a geometric field, and the origin of that field is given by the divine.
So existence starts with presence. One. And absence, the zero, the doubt, the void. That's just a parasite on the prior reality.
Yes, exactly.
You can't have a shadow without an object casting it in the first place.
Yeah.
We've become a culture obsessed with the shadows, constantly trying to prove the objects exist
Yeah.
instead of just reaching out and touching the objects.
And that obsession with the shadow leads directly to what the author diagnoses as epistemological vertigo.
Epistemological vertigo. Wow. A spiritual nausea.
That's a great way to put it.
I mean, I think anyone listening to this who has ever spent 3 hours doom scrolling or lay awake at 3 a.m. wondering if they're doing their life right knows exactly what that vertigo feels like.
Oh, absolutely. It's the nausea caused by realizing that without Q equals 1, without a fixed origin, all values are relative.
Your sense of self just dissolves.
It dissolves into the very variable it's attempting to solve for. The author argues quite forcefully that modern radical doubt, the kind of performative doubt we're taught to praise in universities and cultural discourse, is actually an ontological sickness.
An ontological sickness. The text actually describes it as a severance from the fitra, right?
Yes, the fitra.
Fitra is a term in Islamic theology that refers to the primordial innate recognition of the real.
Exactly.
It's kind of the baseline human setting before society messes with the dials and tells you to start doubting everything.
That's spot on. Pathological doubt is not the absence of evidence, it's the active refusal of the given.
The refusal of the given.
Right. It's a rejection of your own innate reality. When you reject the fitra, you're forcing yourself back into the Brahmagupta trap, trying to pull your identity out of a void.
So what does this all mean for you as you go about your week? We've covered Cartesian philosophy, 7th century mathematics, hyperbolic geometry, and Quranic epistemology.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. But how do we take this incredibly deep, abstract academic analysis and actually apply it to the grim predicament of modern life?
Well, the author's conclusion centers on reclaiming what they call the axiom of presence.
The axiom of presence.
To recover from this epistemological vertigo, we must actively transition our own mindset from being a civilization of the gap to a civilization of the given.
So accepting the one.
Yes, we have to stop doing the exhausting, endless labor of doubt just to prove our right to exist.
We have to stop playing the suspect in our own true crime documentary.
Exactly. We must recognize the soul as the irreducible origin, Q equals 1.
Right.
From that secure, absolute starting point, all responsible thought, all critical inquiry, all interaction with the world can be drawn. You don't abandon critical thought.
You just ground it.
Exactly. You ground it in the certainty of being rather than the anxiety of becoming.
That's a massive paradigm shift. I mean, it completely changes the atmospheric pressure of daily life when you stop treating your existence as a hypothesis that needs solving.
It really does.
I really want to thank you for asking us to do this custom deep dive. The source document you provided was not easy. It demanded a lot from us, and it demands a lot from you as the listener.
It's heavy material.
It is. But your appetite for these kinds of challenging, boundary-pushing ideas is exactly why we love doing this.
Before we go, I want to leave you with a thought from the author.
Yeah, please do.
The author says that trying to prove your existence is like trying to solve for X when you are already the constant.
Wow.
Think about your daily anxieties, imposter syndrome, the fear of missing out, the exhaustion of needing external validation. What would happen tomorrow if you woke up and treated your inherent worth and completeness not as a daily performance you have to construct from zero, but as an absolute undeniable geometric fact?
Q equals 1. The room is already furnished. Keep seeking out those amazing aha moments, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.